What is going on, everyone? It is college football talk. I am your host, Hunter DeLauder, and we have week 2 recap today. So, super excited to get started into that. A lot of great action across the board all day long Saturday. From noon kick all the way to 10:30 at night, we had some great football being played. There was a lot of good, bad, ugly. We'll get into all of it. Make sure you guys see on the bottom right there on that ticker that you guys are not only following me on social media on Twitter at DeLauder Hunter, Instagram Hunter.DeLauder 83, but you guys are also subscribing to the podcast, watching on YouTube, liking, and giving a big subscribe button for a follow. And then also, if you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow on that as well. Like I said, we have a lot to talk about today. Do want to quickly address that. I do apologize. No episode prior to the week 2 starting up. Just some scheduling conflicts got in the way of recording. So do apologize there, but we're right back where we need to be, and we're going to get through week 2 recap today, and then we'll have week 3 preview coming up sometime this week. So definitely be back on schedule, but did want to apologize for that. But nonetheless, though, we're going to get right into it. It's with week 2 recap starting in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the visiting Texas Longhorns went into the Big House, and as it says right there, splattered Michigan. 31-12 was the final. A just complete, utter beatdown it was. The score won't dictate how bad it was. I'm just going to add the score into the line because I forgot to do that. There we go. Perfect. So the score won't dictate how bad the game actually was. It was 24-3 going into half. Texas completely dominated all facets of the game. They played the game that Michigan wanted to play, which was control the line of scrimmage, eat the clock, run the football, and play good defense. And then offense, just see where it takes. Like, that's what Michigan wants to do, especially this year since how much they lost from last year. You bring in a complete new quarterback, new wide receivers. You have Donovan Edwards in the backfield, and you have still Loveland at the tight end spot, but you're replacing all the tight end or all the offensive linemen. It's just completely new, especially on that side of the ball. And that was a big question going into the game, was with Michigan, who looked sloppy the week prior against Fresno State, would they be able to bounce back or show something new? You know, you had Warren starting at quarterback. It was his first career start after a lot of people thought, Alex Orji was going to kind of be the guy. Doesn't. Warren gets the QB1 nod. So he gets the nod, the start, but it didn't matter because he's not good enough to get Michigan where they need to be. And I think that's just going to be a tale all season long for Michigan. I have it written down right here. They just doesn't have a good enough quarterback to make this offense go. And they're going to have to play a game all season long now where their defense is going to have to keep them in the game. And then when their defense doesn't, it's going to kind of probably look like what you saw yesterday or Saturday. And that's just another team's going to just be better than you. And that's what Texas was. They just dominated, like I said, all facets from third down conversions to rushing the ball to time of possession to throwing the football. Quinn Ewers is a Heisman contender. He's a top 3 guy. He just looked poised, knew what he was doing, knew when to kind of move around in the pocket, to scramble, to make plays, and he was just doing all of that. He just looked comfortable. Michigan never got really pressure on him. And the weapons on the outside did what they were supposed to do, and that was just take advantage of mismatches, and that's literally what they did. And it's not like Texas blew Michigan out, especially like passing the football, but like just took advantage of turnovers with good field position and made Michigan pay. And you could tell from the beginning of the game, like that first drive, like even though Texas missed that field goal, you could tell that Texas just felt like things were going to be rolling today. Like it just felt too comfortable going down the field, and they scored on 4 of their first 5 possessions. So And this is against a very stout Michigan defense, too. And what I really loved, what Steve Sarkisian did, was he took he wore down those defensive linemen with Graham leading the front. He made them work side to side. So now you're getting them moving back and forth, tiring them out. Then you can start taking advantage of them inside like that. And they did a great job of that. Like I said, 10 of 16 on third down. Michigan couldn't get off the field. 31 minutes of time in possession Texas had. No turnovers. They rushed for 143 yards. Ewers threw for, I think, 246. So it wasn't like a crazy, crazy day, but you didn't need to because you were working a short field. And if you're having success running the football, why stop? So because then you can just eat clock and then do whatever. But the play calling was outstanding on Sarkisian's front, and they just did whatever they wanted to. They dictated terms, shifting to Michigan. Like I said, just offensively, it's there's just nothing there. No, there hasn't been a receiver yet that's really stepped up to say he's going to be the guy. Where's Donovan Edwards at? That's a guy that is on the cover of the College Football 25 game. He is he's supposed to be the guy. He's been behind Blake Corum for the last few years. Comes back to be the RB1 of Michigan. Where has he been? Yesterday, 8 carries for 41 yards. Through 2 games, Donovan Edwards doesn't have a touchdown. He only has 68 yards on 19 carries. Where are your playmakers? He has to step up and be better. Okay? Especially when the quarterback position is lackluster. You have to step up and be that senior leader. Why you came back is for these moments. To show that you can be counted on when your offense is struggling some. They need a play. They need to be able to look to you and say, hey, Donovan, I need you to get us a 15, 20-yard play. Get us a spark going. Keep the drive alive. And right now he's not doing that. And it's really, really surprising in a sense. I don't know, maybe if it was more just why he was so successful is because of how well he worked off of Blake Corum. But something just doesn't feel right. And it's maybe a mixture of just how much they lost in that interior line for blocking, for the run blocking purposes. But they can't get the run game going yet. And that's what Michigan's DNA is. It's running the football, playing smash mouth football, and just beating you down. And they haven't done that yet. They didn't do it last week against Fresno State. That game was too close. It really was because of a Will Johnson pick 6 that it even was that far out of reach. I mean, that game was close going into the fourth quarter. And so, Michigan is what it is. It now makes the game, I think, not next week, the week after, 2 weeks from now. USC comes in now. It makes it a lot more interesting because now USC, we've seen go toe-to-toe with an SEC school in LSU. But now, again, USC is going to have the better quarterback. They're going to have a more explosive offense. Can that defense now step up? And if they can limit the run game like they did against LSU, now what's Michigan going to do? Because if USC now can make that game into almost like a quarterback duel, I think USC has a really good shot now to go into the Big House and win. I knew they were going to be able to step back. They knew they were going to have to step back some. They weren't going to be one of these teams that was going to regress. But it's just surprising that they're just not getting anything going. Yeah, and so they're going to have to figure it out because Big Ten play starts real soon, and if they don't get it figured out, and that defense is struggling, like I said, they're going to have quite a few more losses than what I predicted them to have. And then, I already touched on it. I mean, they only had 3 of 12 on third down, 204 yards passing, 80 yards rushing, just overall the 3 turnovers really killed them. I think they had 2 in the first half. Just, you can't do it against a team like Texas. You know it's already not going to be intimidated. You saw what they did last year when they went to Tuscaloosa and won. I mean, they're not intimidated by the environment. And so you have to play a clean game. You have to play your best game when you're playing against these kind of teams. And they didn't. So great win for Texas. think they came out now as they moved up to 2 in the new AP poll, so really good on their part. Michigan will have to figure it out. All right, moving on. Tennessee destroys NC State 51-10. This game was played in Charlotte, North Carolina. I believe it's the Duke's Mayo Classic game, but um, Tennessee just kind of it was a slow start for both teams. Like I don't think the first touchdown was scored to about the 9 or 7 minute mark of the first quarter, and Dylan Sampson scored on that. But there was Amaliava started slow, he had an interception, but the Tennessee defense just completely put a stranglehold on NC State. NC State just gross across the board. Grayson McCall has regressed mightily than what he was at Coastal Carolina, and I don't know, maybe if it's just the uptick in competition, but I say that, and they've only played 2 games, and the other game was against Western Carolina, and he really didn't look that good. So I'm not sure what is going on there. I mean, he went 15 of 22, 104 yards, and threw a pick, and that was a pick six. He averaged under 5 yards a attempt. Offensively, across the board, they only had 143 total yards of offense. That is the lowest total since 2009. 39 rushing yards. 39. They only averaged 1.4 yards a carry. You know how terrible you have to be to do that? And I know it's Tennessee. But 1.4 yards a carry? That can't happen. They only had 10 total first downs for a whole game. I mean, there were some poor offensive performances. This is one of them, all on Saturday. The defense played all right. I mean, they held Imaliava to 2 touchdowns, 211 yards of passing, and they forced 2 interceptions. So, I mean, they struggled in the trenches. Dylan Sampson had a really good game, 20 carries, 132 yards. He averaged over 6 yards a carry, and he scored twice. But I think the real story is just that defense for Tennessee. They're becoming super balanced now as a whole, especially on the defensive side. How much they've improved, we'll say, go back to like that 2022 year and how they took the college football world by storm. Explosive offense, doing whatever they want, putting up points against whoever they wanted to, well, except for Georgia. But that's not the point. Outside of Georgia, I mean, they did whatever they wanted to, but they couldn't stop anyone. I mean, remember, Bama was a walk-off. I mean, they gave up 49 to Bama. They gave up 27 to Georgia, but Georgia dominated, and that was the bad weather. If the bad weather didn't come in and kind of slow down what Georgia wanted to do, Georgia probably would have put up 50 points on that Tennessee defense that year. South Carolina put up 63, I want to say. So, I mean, they were giving up points. But last year's, it started. This year, you're seeing like a very balanced defense. Balanced defense is going hand in hand now with that offense. So now you have a balanced team. You're not just being heavily reliant on your offense to do everything. Defense is just swarming. 3 sacks, 13 tackles for loss. They had the 85-yard pick six. That was Will Brooks's pick six. They forced 2 fumbles. Just completely neutralized NC State. NC State went 3 of 14 on 3rd and 4th downs combined. We already talked about the total yards NC State had. I think that's the big story, and it really now people will say maybe that it's NC State's not the best competition. I mean, it's a ranked win for that. I mean, take it how you want, but it's a ranked win against a middle of the pack ACC opponent. But now I think for Tennessee, you have Kent State next week. You're going to crush them. But then the SEC starts. And then you go to Oklahoma. You go to Arkansas. That's the road trip right there. I forget who they play after that. But, I mean, I don't think they're worried about that. That Oklahoma game is probably going to be the better defenses they're going to play all year. And you got to play at Oklahoma. So that will be the big test. If they can just go in there and do whatever they want, then you're going to really, really see as a team that could contend for a national title. And early stages of it, I'm still not completely convinced on them. I'm keeping my eyes on them, though. Like, I want to see them go against that. I want to see them play in those true road environments because Oklahoma's defense is going to be really good, and so they're going to have to go against that. And then Arkansas, while their defense may struggle, although defense played all right on Saturday, Arkansas's offense with the Bobby Petrino revival is putting up numbers. I mean, they put up over 600 yards of offense go to Oklahoma State's defense Saturday. And if it wasn't for some miscues, they would have won that game very handily. So I really want to see. It's going to be good two tests. So like you'll have the on the road, your offense is going to be put to test, I think, and then the defense is going to really get put to test, I think, at Arkansas. And those are two environments you do not want to fall behind in and struggle. So very interested to see. But I really liked what I saw. All right, moving on to the next game. We're going to be going over a bunch of games today. I only have 4 highlighted games that we're really going to go in depth with, but we have a new segment that we're going to start adding in called Around the Country. We're going to be bringing that in later. We're going to just kind of knock through a bunch of the other games that we just wouldn't have time to go through everything. Otherwise, we'd be here for like 3 hours. So we'll just knock them out, talk about them, give our thoughts real quick, but nothing like in depth, kind of like this. And this game, excuse me, is worth a time or two because Notre Dame stunned by Northern Illinois and South Bend as 28.5-point favorites. The Fighting Notre Dame Irish, that sounded terrible. And that was completely wrong. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame completely got outplayed offensively. Defense did their job. I mean, you forced 16 points. You should win a game, especially as a 30-point favorite. But, I mean, the offense is anemic. Anemic. Let's find the definition. So anemia is the problem of not having enough healthy red blood cells, or hemoglobin, to carry oxygen to the body's tissues. Notre Dame, not having enough oxygen to carry this offense. I mean, there is nothing propelling this offense to do anything. They, through 2 games, and that is now 8 quarters of play, they have 3 touchdowns. That is not good enough to do. Well, excuse me, they have 4 touchdowns. Apologize for that. 8 quarters, they only have 4 touchdowns. And, I mean, that's just not good enough. I mean, especially when you're playing Northern Illinois. No disrespect to Northern Illinois and the boys out from DeKalb, Illinois. Shout out, DeKalb. But, I mean, where is Notre Dame at? I mean, these are games you're supposed to just destroy, especially coming off a win like you had. I know there's a tendency to possibly, a little bit of a letdown. Maybe the first half, you're scoring points, but you're also giving up points, aka what Penn State did yesterday or Saturday. I keep saying yesterday, but we're recording on a Monday. I do what Penn State did, but they're not getting anything going offensively. 286 total yards. Riley Leonard, who is just, I think we're finally now just kind of realizing maybe we're giving him a little bit of just, benefit of the doubt, new team. Let him get the system, and new coordinator Mike Denbrock comes from LSU, but the offense isn't getting anything going. Leonard went 163 yards through the air, 4.9 yards passing average, and he threw 2 picks, no touchdowns. And so let's see, how do you give teams that shouldn't be in this game life? In turnovers, struggling on offense, and just letting them hang around. I mean, at the beginning of the game, they went a 13-play, 75-yard drive and scored a touchdown. And it was like, okay, this is how we want the game to go. And then again, the offense shut down, went anemic, and they didn't score again till the 3rd quarter. And it was a rushing score by Jeremiah Love. So Riley Leonard is what it is. He is what he is. And that's just going to be an average quarterback who is capable of using his legs if he needs to. It's nothing special. He's nothing overpowering. I mean, if Connor Wegman has a little bit of a better game, A&M probably wins that game. I mean, offense last week, week one, quite frankly, didn't do anything special either. They had two big running plays that broke the game open. That was it. And then this week, couldn't get anything going on the run. I mean, they had over 120 yards rushing, but Jeremiah Love was their leading carrier with 11 carries for 79 yards. I mean, this is what it is. I mean, NIU controlled this game the entire way. They had over 9 more minutes of time of possession. They had 388 total yards compared to the 286. So they had over 100 yards more. They didn't turn the ball over, which is what you have to not do if you do want to upset Notre Dame. Passing yards, 198, over 9 yards an attempt. And they ran the ball. Granted, they ran the ball 45 attempts for 190, so it was only about 4 yards a carry. Still, 45 times. I mean, they wore down that D line or that defense for Notre Dame. And you saw that final drive when they were setting up for that field goal attempt. I mean, they were just pushing Notre Dame back. And that can't happen. And I don't know, maybe if it's Notre Dame just prepared for a one-game season. They put everything they had into just that A&M game. And now you just flop like a fish out of water. After? I mean, is that how this rest of the season's going to go? I mean, the season schedule set up perfectly for Notre Dame to just make a run and get to the playoff. And apparently it's too good to be true. Because I guess teams like NIU, Miami, Ohio, and Purdue are going to be too tough to handle for Notre Dame. If they're going to play like this, they're going to be in dogfights all year. And it's not going to be just NIU that's going to give them fits and beat them potentially. So I don't know if they need to make a QB change. I don't know if they need to just find something in the offense that gets this team going. And this all falls back on, I think, to the coaching staff. James Franklin. Starts with the head coach with Mark Freeman. He's got to have his team ready to go more. His team was not prepared, and they have to be. You cannot take any Saturday off. It's why coaches stress staying consistent week in and week out, because teams like this are super on and off, and that's inconsistency. You need to be consistent if you want to win a championship in this day and age of college football. Saturday proved that Notre Dame is not a national title contender. You cannot be losing to Northern Illinois as a 30-point favorite at home and only score 2 touchdowns and go virtually a quarter and a half without scoring after you scored on the opening drive. So it's almost really like 2.5 quarters, because if you take away the first 6 minutes of the game when they did score, other than that, it was nothing. So Notre Dame's got a soul search. I really would like to see them come out next week and just blow the doors off. I think they play Miami, Ohio. I think maybe it would calm down the Notre Dame fans some, but we'll see. This game, though, shows me that they shouldn't probably be in the playoff, though. If you struggle with Northern Illinois, what that tells me is that you're not ready to be in the playoff, because you're not going to be able to contend with some of these other guys that are going to be ready. So why should I give you a shot then? If you've already proven to me that you can't play around and beat a Northern Illinois team that is nothing special, but they wanted the game more. They went out there and fought their tail off, and they completely dominated you from all facets. So, a lot of soul searching for Notre Dame. I think I want to see if they can find some explosiveness in that offense. You brought Mike Denbrock in for a reason to do that. Remember, he was at LSU last year, giving Jaden Daniels a Heisman Trophy and watching that offense just explode each and every week. I want to see if they can do that. Can he find something in Riley Leonard? Or is Riley Leonard just one of those guys, kind of like what DJU is at Florida State, or Cade Klubnik is. Although Cade Klubnik had a heck of a day yesterday. But like they are what they are. So we're gonna see if they can bounce back. But I don't think this is a playoff team for sure. I think this loss is too big of a stain that you cannot just wipe it off. Like it's not, it can't come off. And I better not see them get the benefit of the doubt later on in the year because let's say Northern Illinois is a 7-8 win team. I still don't care. I mean, that is a loss that you cannot just gloss over. It needs to be remembered, and they better not be given that benefit of the doubt. I don't care if they go 11. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The schedule's not strong enough to where you can just bounce back for this. So, moving on though, before I keep going on the Notre Dame rant, probably what's one of the more fun games of the day. Keep getting ahead of myself here. Tongue time. But Oklahoma State completes comeback and beats Arkansas 39-31 in double overtime. A complete tale of two halves if you watch this game. I mean, Arkansas came out firing out of a cannon for the first half. Completely dominated Oklahoma State. I mean, Oklahoma's defense was on their heels. I want to say the entire game, but like the entire first half, outside of the pick six, which kept Oklahoma State in this game. I mean, outside of that, they completely got destroyed on all fronts. Arkansas, I was super impressed what they did offensively. I mean, they look really good offensively. It's one thing to do it against Arkansas Pine Bluff. It's another thing to go to Stillwater against a pretty solid defense in Oklahoma State and put up 648 total yards of offense. Taylon Green is starting to come in. He's starting to come into his true form here. And I think Bobby Petrino, their offensive coordinator, is really playing into his strengths, which is keeping him either working in that RPO game, bouncing off the run game, and then really setting up play action, but also getting him on the run, outside the pocket, creating plays for him. And they just look super explosive. I mean, he 26-45 threw 416 yards, had a touchdown, did throw the pick, but he had over 9 yards of completion. I mean, offensively, they went 11-9, 19 on third down. They were staying on the field. Bigger stat for me is they rushed for over 230 yards of offense on Saturday. They ran the ball 47 times. Time of possession was 36-14. Jaquindon Jackson, 24 carries, 149 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Every time he touched the ball, it looked like, I mean, the offensive line, credit to them, but like there was a hole, just a massive hole that he was able to run right through. It seemed like they were playing. It was like 12-on-5. It felt like where everyone was just covering. There was not a defender in sight, and he was just able to get chunk play after chunk play after chunk play, and he destroyed Oklahoma State. He averaged over 6 yards a carry. But the big thing that kept Oklahoma State in this game and ultimately gave them the win were the miscues. Arkansas has to learn how to play a complete game against teams that you're not favored to beat. They need to learn, if they want to get back to where they were, how to play a complete game, a mistake-free game, and finish ball games. Arkansas had 3 turnovers in the game. They had the pick six, which kept Oklahoma State somehow alive in that first half. Fumbled the ball twice in the second half, including a muff punt, which set Oklahoma State right back up to where they scored again. And then in overtime, missed field goal, and then a failed fourth down attempt that ultimately lost them the game. And Oklahoma State, give them credit because they did not play well. They didn't run the ball very well. Ollie Gordon only had 49 yards on 17 carries. He did score a touchdown, but Oklahoma State was held to 59 total yards of offense on the rushing side. They only had 385 total yards. I mean, Arkansas almost doubled them in that category. And third and fourth down was gross. They went 6 of 18 combined. So if you just looked at the box score and maybe took out the turnover spot, you'd say Arkansas went into Stillwater and they blew them out. And they didn't, because those miscues ultimately kept Oklahoma State alive enough to where they were able to take advantage of those mistakes. And credit to them. They could have easily folded in and just said, listen, it's just not our day. We can't stop them. Let's just look towards next week. Instead, they kept on going, kept on chugging along. And each time there was a mistake that Arkansas had, they were right there to say, thank you. Like, we'll take that. And thanks for giving us extra life. And they did. And lucky for them that, they also, remember, they missed a field goal too in overtime. It wasn't just Arkansas that missed that field goal. Oklahoma State returned right back to favor and missed as well. And, but luckily they got the ball back, they scored, and then they got the 2-point conversion. And they were able to, play good defense at the end, because Arkansas, it seemed like Arkansas, each time Oklahoma State maybe got a little momentum going, Arkansas was right there to take it back. I know Oklahoma State, it was late in the fourth, they tied it, and they had Arkansas on their heels a little bit, and then all of a sudden Arkansas just came right back down the field and said, thank you. Well, thanks for your crappy defense. But kudos to Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy kind of working around that. That was a bad game that they played, and they showed that, these are what good teams do, though. You can still play a bad game, but if you can come out and still execute when it's needed, you can win the game. And that's what they showed today. Arkansas, the offense is legit. I think it's going to give a lot of teams trouble, but they have got to learn to clean up the mistakes and play a clean, full 60 minutes. If they can do that, I think they're going to exceed a lot more expectations. If not, you're going to see games like this where it's like, how did we let that one slip away? Like, we had that one, and we just let it right through our fingers. So if they can figure that out, I think they're going to be in a good spot. But, just gotta kind of flush this one and move forward. So, because that was a tough one, because I think they know that they let that one they really could have been a program boosting win right there, just because of how poorly it's been there. If you got a win like that, I think that would have been so big for Sam Pittman and his job status. But just overall, things are so much better when you can go on the road like that and just steal a win. And they just couldn't. They couldn't finish it. They had the money in their hands, getting ready to walk out, and then the cops were waiting for them on the other side. So, but let's see if they can bounce back. Oklahoma State, really like what I saw. As far as, just kept chugging along and really, were there for pick up all the Arkansas mistakes. And so I really like how they didn't quit. And I think that shows that this is a team that, is why they're a contender for the Big 12. All right. Now we're going to move into the new segment of the week called Around the Country, where we're just going to bounce around the country and talk about some games that, although not headlining games, we'll give our thoughts on, because there are definitely some games where there was a lot of good. Like I said at the beginning, there was a lot of good. There were some games that were a lot of bad, and there were some games that was a lot of ugly. So let's start with Nebraska. Nebraska Saturday night rolled Colorado 28-10. The Cornhuskers got one of the bigger wins in recent program history. The environment was as good as any you'll see this year. And while the stats may not blow you away, they physically just dominated Colorado. It felt like the Oregon game from last year, when there was a lot of talk about Colorado, and they went on the road for the first time, and they got their panties waxed. And that's what happened yesterday, or Saturday. They couldn't do anything. They only had 260 yards total offense. They went 4-14 on third down, only averaged about 6 yards a pass attempt. They couldn't keep Shedeur Sanders clean in the pocket. They couldn't run the ball at all. They only had 16 rushing yards on 22 attempts. They averaged under a yard a carry. And they had over 104 yards of penalties. So you're undisciplined, you can't block, you can't run the football, and you're stuck playing an air raid offense where you're just throwing the ball 60 times a game. That's probably not the best recipe if you're going to win, especially now you're in a conference that historically is used to the offense that you're going to play. These coaches weren't born yesterday. Like, they know how to defend this kind of stuff. So if they want to just play that kind of offense, kudos to you. But I don't think that's the wisest thing. Also, Shador Sanders kind of, now, granted, I didn't watch the full clip. I didn't watch the full conference, so I don't know. But, like, the clips that we did see, him calling out his offensive line, like, it's probably not the best thing to do 2 games into a season, especially when those guys are supposed to have your back. So to do that, probably not the best decision. But what do I know? Travis Hunter did have a good game, though. 110 yards receiving, 10 receptions. But this is who Colorado is. I think we've kind of firmly established that now. They're a team that's just going to, you're going to see a lot of flash. You're going to see a lot of attitude. But, I mean, when they play against teams that are going to be physically more dominant than them, they're going to get rolled. They're going to get steamrolled because they just physically aren't able to stack up front. And when you become completely predictable, become one-sided on offense, defenses are going to know how to play that, and you're not going to be able to do anything. I mean, you might as well just start their games being down like 30-0, because that's the kind of offense they kind of just operate under, is that they're just going to, just sling the rock each and every time. So as far as Nebraska goes, I mean, this means, the hype train is rolling right now in Lincoln. This sets up now where, again, 7-0 is what we talked about before they head to Columbus. I mean, Northern Iowa, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana, those are all games they should win. Even after that, let's say they lose that game. UCLA should win that one. That USC game now becomes a lot bigger. And then you get Wisconsin and Iowa. This has a special season in the making. Now, remember last year, they went on a stretch there where they were a game away from getting bowl eligible, and they pooped their pants the rest of the year. Can they finish this season now? I know we're only 2 games in, but the hype train is left the station. Let's just say that. All right, next game. Iowa State wins the Cy-Hawk Trophy in walk-off fashion against the Iowa Hawkeyes, 20-19. They go on the road to Kinnick on a great atmosphere type game, in a game that Iowa controlled for most of the game. But again, with how bad they are offensively, if you're good enough, it gives you more time to complete a comeback, and that's what they did. They let Iowa State hang around just enough where they were able to just kind of keep on chipping away, and eventually they hit the big 54-yarder to win the game. Walked off. I think there was like 2 seconds left in that game, so it was more than over. But credit to Iowa State. Rocco Beck played a good game. He's a true sophomore. So, and I was you go on the road, you beat a ranked opponent. Iowa State outscored Iowa 20-6 in the second half. And that's how you when you can't score and you let teams hang around, that's what happens. So, again, 272, 2 touchdowns, did throw a pick. But, other than that, Noel for Iowa State, great game. 5 receptions, 133 yards and a touchdown. And then the kicker, you hit the 54-yarder to win it. Beat a rival like that and steal the trophy back, taken back to Ames. Those are the games. That's the game of the year in that state. So to do that, to bring the trophy that against your worst rival, steal it at their place, that's big time. And that was probably one of the top games of the afternoon in that 3:30 slate. I'd say it was probably a more competitive game than the NIU game, beating Notre Dame. But now, outcome-wise, it wasn't the biggest story. But I'd say more competitive-wise, it was. All right, next game. South Carolina destroyed Kentucky. Speaking of competitive games in the 3:30 slate, this was not one of them. The Gamecocks, who looked terrible last week against Old Dominion at home, went on the road to Lexington and just completely destroyed Big Blue Nation in Kentucky. Kentucky quarterbacks went combined 6 of 17 for 44 yards, no touchdowns, and they also combined for 2 interceptions. Those are between two quarterbacks. They averaged 2.6 yards an attempt. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't block anyone on that defensive front. Just completely got outplayed on all fronts. And credit to South Carolina, because there was a lot of talk throughout the week about how this team was going to just kind of get run out of the building, especially of how bad they played. And then you had to turn around and go to Lexington, where you knew Kentucky probably on paper was a better team. And they just completely quieted the crowd from the get-go. There was never a moment where you thought that Kentucky was going to win this game. It was all South Carolina from the jump. And Lenore Sellers, while not his best game, I think settled in nicely. I still want to see more from him, but he's settling into his spot, I think, a little more now. He went 11 to 15, nothing special, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. There was a big pass he made in that second half where it was like, okay, this feels like a game South Carolina is going to just kind of now run away with. And that's what happened. Kentucky had no answers, and they just couldn't do anything offensively. And when you can't do that, you're in up for a long day. And great news for them, they now get Georgia next week, or this week, I guess. So it's Saturday night game in Lexington. But, if you get that same performance, now they gave up 51 last year to Georgia. Could be around that similar number this year. If they play like that again Saturday, they will get run out of the building before it even starts. As far as South Carolina goes, now you get game day heading to Columbia for a noon kick against LSU. That place is going to be supercharged. Williams-Brice will be on fire. It will be literally on fire, probably temperature-wise there. But I don't think they're going to care. And this will be one of the biggest games in South Carolina since probably 2019. Probably around there. It will be a lively crowd, to say it so. And listen, if they play like that again this week, they will give LSU fits, who just hasn't really seemed like they have taken off yet, which you still don't figure yourself out after playing Nichols. Now you got to go to Columbia in one of the hostile environments you'll see in college football. You might be in for a long one. That is for the game to be played on Saturday, not for me to be talking about it on a Wednesday or Thursday. So, moving on though, Alabama escaped USF. The score won't dictate how competitive this game was. The score will tell you 42-16. Alabama exploded in the fourth with 28 points scored, but this was a one-score game with about 8 to 9 minutes left in the game. I mean, South Florida gave Alabama everything they could give and made Jalen Milroe's night a nightmare. I mean, they were getting to him left and right. Now, Alabama was down 2 starters on the line, which USF benefited from mightily. But, I mean, they were able to just kind of keep Bama in check all game. They forced turnovers when they need to. There was a big turnover they had in the red zone when Bama was looking to pop one in. And credit to USF, they hung in there. Byron Brown struggled throwing the football, which really was the story of the game, because if he was accurate enough and made some throws that he missed, USF might have won this game. But they didn't. They struggled in the red zone. I think Golich said after the game, he didn't want to get into a drop back game in the red zone unless they absolutely had to. And that's just saying, it's not saying you don't trust your quarterback, but, you want to at least walk away with 3, and that's what they ended up doing. Too many field goals when they needed touchdowns, because if you're going to beat Bama, especially in Tuscaloosa, you're going to have to score touchdowns, and they only scored the 1. But credit to them, they have given Alabama more fits than anybody else probably in the last 2 years. And lucky for Bama fans who keep saying they never want to see him again, you get him again 2026. So congratulations there. You do get the year off, though, which is nice, I guess. But you'll see him right back in Tuscaloosa in the year 2026. So congrats there. USF, wow, feels like they probably should have walked away. They need to walk away with their heads up. They're probably thinking that we let that one slip some. I think the score doesn't indicate how well they played. They get Southern Miss this week, but then they get Miami at home. And I think that could be a really, really good game, especially if they can find a way to kind of keep Cam Ward in check. They will play a lot better than what Florida did. I think so. And I think that's a game where you need to keep that one on the radar. Especially if USF wants to be one of those group of 5 teams to contend for the playoff. That's a game I think you're going to have to win, because then because if you don't, you're already going to have 2 losses. Then it kind of your season, as far as like making the playoffs, slips by the wayside. Still could keep competing for the AAC, because those are out of conference losses, so it doesn't matter. But if you want to get to the playoff, you're going to have to win one of these games. And it becomes a giant resume builder. Auburn got upset by Cal on Saturday, and I wrote an article that got published on WRUF, ESPN Gainesville site, talking about this game, and so did a whole preview on it. Go check it out if you want to. But I talked about how, while Cal struggles really getting anything going, they run the ball well and they force turnovers. They do that better than anything. They tied the national rank last year with 28 turnovers last year. They were really good this year so far. They had 3 in week 1. And yesterday they forced 5 Auburn turnovers. And last year, when Auburn went to Berkeley, they forced 4 turnovers. So entering the game, they were going to have to force turnovers and make Peyton Thorne's life miserable. And they did that. Like I said, they forced 5 turnovers. Peyton Thorne had 4 interceptions. He struggled mightily. I talked about in that article how he's going to have to play one of his better games, because he didn't play well the year before, and he didn't play good this year. He had 14 of 27, 165 yards, threw a touchdown, and had 4 interceptions. He got outplayed by Mendoza. Credit to him. I said that in the article. And I keep kind of going back to it, because like the article, if you go through it, I mean, it says everything that kind of how this game unfolded. I said Auburn needs to play a clean game. They need to use the weapons on the outside, because while Cal's really good at forcing turnovers, they're very susceptible at giving up big chunk plays, struggle some in the passing game. And Auburn has really good weapons on the outside, led by Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons. And they just couldn't get anything going. Cam Coleman was the leading receiver for Auburn. He had 2 catches for 53 yards. I mean, Cal played to how they needed to upset this game. That was forced turnovers, short field, score points when needed. They were a 12.5-point dog heading into this game. They won outright by 7. So Auburn has got to figure something out now with the quarterback spot, because this offense has too many weapons to be held back because of poor quarterback play. And remember, they don't go on the road for the first time until October 5th when they go to Georgia, but they still have to play Oklahoma at home. And I forget who else they played. Let's see here. So they get New Mexico at home, they get Arkansas at home, and then they get Oklahoma at home. So they still have 3 more games at home before they hit the road. And then they got to play Georgia and Missouri on the road, back-to-back weeks. They need to figure out this quarterback situation before they really get into SEC play. Because if they don't and he struggles all year, you're going to see a lot of guys that you worked hard to get through the portal, through high school recruiting, possibly start jumping ship. Because it's just, to them, it's saying, why do I need to come here and waste my time if quarterback play is going to stink? If you can somehow kind of rewrite the ship a little bit and just kind of um, get back on the top of the surface, I think you might be able to, you know, what I'm trying to look for, just find more consistency, get more explosive in the offense, because right now they're not doing much offensively. They didn't, they got, I mean, they struggled running the football, they struggled throwing the football, and they turned the ball over too much. So when you start, if they do that against quality opponents, they're not going to have a very good year. So, final game here around the country, excuse me. Oregon escapes Boise State. And the only reason why I talk about this game, Oregon needs to never schedule a team from Idaho again through the first 2 weeks of the year. And I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they came into this game as a near 20-point favorite, and they only won by 3. And kudos to Boise State, because they're a force to be reckoned with a little bit. Try to find the game here. Ashton Genty is just on another level right now. And I don't know if it's a Linsanity run or not, but I mean, he's got through 2 games. He has 45 carries, 459 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 5 receptions. He's averaging 10 yards a run. I mean, Saturday, he had 25 carries for $192 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he is just completely on another level right now. But as far as Oregon goes, I mean, I don't know if it's the poor offensive line play, if it's just for some reason the defense isn't clicking, but they have got to figure it out, because this team's too good to just be in these dogfights against inferior opponents like this. And now, Boise State will probably be contending for a Group of 5 spot in the playoff. I will say that. And that's a good team they beat. I think Boise State's never a slouch, no matter how bad or good they are each year. They're always going to give their team fits. But Oregon, come on. I mean, you're a top 5 odds to win the title for a reason. Like, this is a loaded roster that is too good to be messing around or, struggling against these teams. I mean, they still have to play Ohio State. They have to play Oregon State, I believe, next week. If I'm wrong. Could be wrong. Let me see real quick. See their schedule, because it doesn't get any easier. I mean, they get Oregon State this week, and they got to go to Corvallis for Civil War. Then they got to go to UCLA. Then it's Michigan State, and then Ohio State. But then that back end of the schedule now, you still have to go to Ann Arbor. You got to go to Wisconsin, and you have to play Washington. So I don't know what they're doing, but they need to figure it out. I mean, it's a lot of these teams. Like, there's too many mistakes for some of these teams that are too good to be making these mistakes. So, like I keep saying, like, they need to, work around these offensive line issues. And if not, like, if this becomes a thing that just plagues them all year, then they're just not going to get to where they want to be. So, moving on, though, to our final stages here of the episode. Make sure, again, like you see on the bottom of the screen there, it says subscribe, watch on YouTube, like the videos, hit that big red subscribe button. And then also, if you're on Spotify, listen, follow me on the app at College Football Talk. Also, hit me up on the socials, Twitter, DeLauder Hunter, and then Instagram is hunter.delauder83. So, all right, moving on to our final 2 segments of the podcast. Winners of the week, here as my camera goes in and out. Iowa State, big win on the road, beating your most hated rival and taking back the Cy-Hawk Trophy. Clemson had a great bounce back week, beating an App State team that will on any given Saturday, kind of just like Boise State, will be a just nuisance to anyone. And they left no doubt. They scored 56 points in the first half. They ended up winning the game 66 to, let me see, was 66 20. But Cade Klubnik, 378 yards, 5 touchdowns. Phil Maffa had over 100 yards rushing. Bryant Wesco Jr., we talked about him leading into the Georgia game. He's the freshman. He had 3 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown. Like, that's how good he can be. And it also shows Clemson, how well Clemson played. It also shows how well Georgia is. We're not going to talk about them other than this. How Georgia's going to be this year. I mean, Georgia, slaughtered Clemson week 1. We talked about that in the week 1 recap. Completely destroyed them on all fronts. And that either tells me that Clemson just is going to be really good, but it also shows me that that's how good Georgia is. Like, that you can keep a team that scored 56 in the first half against no slouch of a group of 5 team and held Clemson to 3 points an entire game. So that is a tip of the cap to the Dogs, who right now, I think the new AP poll came out. They still have to play on the road, the numbers ranked 2 team, the number 4 team, and the number 5 team on the road. And then they get the number 7 team at home. So for everyone to talk about Florida's schedule, which is going to be one hell of a challenge for them. Gators looked good this weekend. Lagway looked really good. That's a honorable mention winner of the week. Georgia, that's a gauntlet in itself right there. Luckily, they're good enough to they'll be able to compete in those games, probably win some of them. Those are no Saturdays for you to have a break on. Otherwise you're going to lose. So, all right, back to the winners of the week though. Cal, talked about him. Great job going on the road and getting revenge on a team that you thought you should have won last year. Illinois, big win at home against Kansas, who was ranked going in. Really nice win there for Brett Bielema in the Fighting Illini. NIU, talked about it. Hell of a win for the boys from DeKalb. A really nice weekend for the state of Illinois. Actually, right there, Illinois, NIU getting big wins. South Carolina, talked about them, Lenore Sellers, and that Gamecock group getting a huge win to start SEC play. And then they get LSU at home. Big time game this week. And then Nebraska, really nice win. And like I talked about, that hype train is just chugging along. It's left the station and it's moving. And it's moving fast. So, all right. Final segment of the night, we have losers of the week. Auburn is going to lead that group with losing at home as a double-digit favorite and turning the football over 5 times. So, shout out to me, though, for predicting all that or kind of thinking that in advance. So, I'll give myself a pat on the back. Oregon, again, we talked about struggling mightily against teams that they shouldn't be. Beating Idaho by 10, surviving a Boise State run. It's not acceptable. And Dan Lanning probably knows that. And I figured they're going to get it fixed sooner rather than later. But if not, then they're not going to be a national title team. So Penn State, probably the biggest loser of the week outside of Notre Dame. They were a 34.5-point favorite this weekend at home against Bowling Green. They only won by 7. They trailed at half. Bowling Green's over-under for points scored in the game as a team total was 7.5. They had 24 in the first half. Not acceptable by Penn State, especially of how well they played last week. And this had to have been just a letdown. But come on, seriously, I thought Drew Aller played well. I thought the offense was good, but I'm more frustrated with the defense. How you can't be taking weeks off, especially when Big Ten play starts, because you can't go from playing like an inferior Big Ten team. Now, then you go up and play Ohio State, because that you're not going to get off the hook as easily as playing against Bowling Green. So Notre Dame, I skipped one. Alabama, just sloppy play. Kudos to USF though for making their life miserable for 4 quarters. But you're a 30.5-point favorite for a reason. Just you're playing at home on Saban night too. And that was a night for Saban to just chew a bunch of guys' butts out. So, maybe that was on purpose. But if it wasn't, too many penalties, not enough protection up front. And the running back room and the tight end group needs to step up a little bit more. Because now next 2 games for Bama, they have to go to Camp Randall next weekend, and then they get the bye, and then Georgia comes to town. So the O-line needs to figure itself out. Hopefully they get their 2 starters back. But again, the penalties is what's going to kill them the most. Too many penalties. Notre Dame, talked about it, unacceptable on all fronts to be losing as a 30-point favorite at home against NIU. Kentucky, I don't know what they're going to do with the quarterback room. They got away from the run game too much in the early stages when the game was still in hand. And to lose like that at home is nothing short of pathetic, especially as a near double-digit favorite against a team that struggled with Old Dominion. Got to be better. Got to be better. And now you get Georgia coming in. So we'll see what that happens there. And then Colorado, just you are who you are. And that's just a very flashy team that's going to have a lot of cockiness and arrogance, and they're not going to have anything to back it up with. So I thought this team would go 6-6, but if they can't run the ball effectively, or for that matter, just at all, and they can't keep Shedeur Sanders upright, then it is what it is. I thought the defense played decent for what it's worth. There was a pick 6 thrown in there that Shedeur Sanders had. And then there was a fluky touchdown that it should have been a pick and possibly a pick 6 by Colorado. It went off the defender's hands and bounced up, and the guy caught it and ran it in. So some flukiness. So outside of those 2 plays, I thought the defense played relatively well. But offensively, you become so predictable and one-sided that it doesn't matter. So, but other than that, guys, that is college football talk with myself, Hunter DeLauder. I can't keep stressing enough. We're 6 subscribers away from 100 subscribers. Make it happen, guys. I know there's 6 of you out there that are either watching or know some people that love college football as much as we do. Get them to watch the videos, subscribe, and like all the videos because we really need it. I would love to grow this podcast to where I know it can get to, and we just got to get more subscribers to make that happen. So if we can do that, who knows where the end goal is, because it could be out. See, you can't even see my hand because that's how high up I'm going. So make it happen. Listen on Spotify as well. Follow there, and then follow me on the socials. DeLauder Hunter on Twitter, Hunter.DeLauder83 on Instagram. We'll be back later this week with week 3 preview. Can't wait to get rolling on that as we keep chugging along here on this college football journey. So I'll be back later this week for that. Until then, see ya.